Well, thank you very much for joining the conversation this morning. We get into the newspapers to let you know what exactly is happening. We'll shortly be joined by our guest development economist at the University for Development Studies. I'm talking about Dr. Michael Ayamga. But before he connects with us, let's find out what the newspapers have by way of the headlines. So the Daily Graphic, that's where I'm going to start. By the way, what do you make of Kisieja being the special prosecutor and his work so far? And do you feel anything different is happening from when, for example, Martin Alamisi Burns Kaiser Amidu was actually head of that office? Do you think things have become any better in terms of the person at the helm of affairs and what he is doing, and also in terms of logistics, finances, the right atmosphere to work? And now the special prosecutor is even pointing at the judiciary and saying, look, it appears you guys don't really understand my work and the powers I have, and you are actually impacting my work negatively with the decisions you are putting out. What is your take? Share with us via the live feed. If you go on Joy News on Facebook, just look for videos and then you'll see the news review there. Then you can share your thoughts with us. We'd love to hear from you. And as we read out your comments, hopefully it will help shape the national picture. Just season your comments with the right levels of decorum. If you write anything insulting and all of that, you can guarantee I will not read them. But before I get to my guest, this segment, as always, is brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Here's what they're offering you if you're a man, like I am. They're offering prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, like Bernice Abubedu Lanza, they're offering you fertility screening for free, gratis. All you have to do is make your way to any of their branches and get screened. Here in the crowd, they're at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Then there's Kumasi, Chronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswe and Siamanzima. Their call lines are you ready? 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review. Do I have Dr. Ayamga with me now? All right. So my invitation has been thrown to you already. I want you to connect with me and let me know what you think about this entire saga of, not saga of the returnee, that reminds me of KSM, but this entire saga of the OSP's office and everything that has been happening in between. It makes for very interesting assessment. But we'll get into that story. OSP Bares Teeth probes state land sales payrolls, and all of those featuring as the banner headline of the Daily Graphic. Majority stages walkout in Parliament over budget debate. That story also featuring there. State agencies save $30 million from Ghana card merger. That story also featuring prominently. And then there's special supplement on Farmers' Day. That is also in there, Friday. On the back page of the paper, Vice President launches 100-day countdown to African Games. And there's also stop using woven bags for bagging cement. EPA directs manufacturing companies. All of those stories there as far as the Daily Graphic is concerned. Like I said, if you want to join the feed or share your thoughts, just go to Joy News on Facebook and then look for videos. Then you can connect with us. So let's get into some of those stories. The Office of the Special Prosecutor has commenced investigations into suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses in government payroll systems. The Special Prosecutor, Kisia Jabing, who announced this at a press conference in Accra yesterday, said the investigations were being done in collaboration with the Controller and Accountant General's Department. Now, already, he said a joint team of staff from the OSP and the CAGD had been formed to spearhead the investigations. Quoting him, he says, The assessment and investigation are especially aimed at isolating and removing non-existent names, recovering wrongful payments, and the prosecution of persons suspected to be culpable of any offenses, he said. The investigation and assessment will cover all banks and employees on government payroll, he said. In respect of state lands, he says the investigation covers all lands and properties that fall under the direct stewardship of the Lands Commission, the Ministry of Works and Housing, all other ministries, the State Housing Company, state-owned companies, and other state agencies. And let me wrap with his criticism of judges. Mr. Ajabeng, who was speaking at his first major engagement with the media since taking office 2 years ago, bemoaned what he described as a trend of, quote, dismissive attitudes from some judges towards the work of the OSP, which was hampering the fight against corruption. He said the OSP, in compliance with its mandate, regularly updated the public on its operations, cases in court, as well as its opinion on judicial decisions affecting its work. I'll not give you the entire scoop. Of course, I want you to get the Daily Graphic newspaper and get the thoughts. But especially on these points he raises in respect of the banks, the payroll, and people getting paid sums of money that they don't deserve. We've seen that even at the very place where we should have some protection. The finance ministry itself has been mired in this in the past. I still remember those three people, someone pulling or drawing over 20,000 CDs, another person about 11 or 8,000, another person. Imagine these sums of money, taking them for about 2 years. And we are claiming we didn't detect that these people did not even, these faceless people did not even work with the finance ministry. It's there in the records. I remember. So all of these problems have to be addressed. These are the same problems leading to the gargantuan losses every year to corruption. I'm talking about the $4 to $6 billion that we use. If we had that kind of money in our kitty, there would be no reason to go to the IMF. Now, before I go to Dr. Ayamga, this bit about state lands as well. Places like Roman Ridge, state land, state property, state developments, Labone, cantonments, and the rest. I rest my case. If you know, you know. And I'm very glad that the special prosecutor is going to go into this, and I hope he goes into it to the final, whatever, to the dregs of this drink, that he goes to the very bottom of those matters. Because some of the things we know. Dr. Ayamga, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Morning, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you. Better late than never, at least because the connection did not allow us to see you earlier. At least we have you joining the conversation. I've just been talking about the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and I don't know whether you followed his presser yesterday as he spoke on myriad matters. He's talking about banks and the payroll system as far as, government agencies, among others, are concerned. In the past we've had, and we keep having it when the Auditor General's report comes up, where faceless people, even at the Ministry of Finance, if you recall, are being given money when in fact they don't even work at these places. All of those are there. Then there's the issue of state land, which, according to many, investigative reports, point to the fact that they are being sold, even as far as, those parks that we are supposed to have, all the way from decades ago, the parks and gardens, the parks we are supposed to have in the city. Some of them nearly got sold in the past, as we've heard. And then he's also criticized judges that they have a dismissive attitude towards his work. How do you react to that story?
It's a mixed bag for me, Ben, this morning. I have always said I'm not a fan of the special prosecutor because I felt he more or less allowed some people to get away with flimsy technicalities whilst pursuing the small fishes that had no impact on our corruption perception and also the incidence of corruption in this country. But I also shared his frustration, and yesterday I was inclined to think that he was genuinely frustrated and has been trying to do his best, but the judicial system, and for that matter, the establishment, were using whatever means they could to frustrate him. So yesterday, I felt it. Particularly payroll is the old demon in this country, be it temporary job measures that the government has created, or even the good old payroll system controlled by the Department of Controller, Accountant General. People manage to put other people in there who are not working and they are drawing salaries. Arrangements are made and people are sitting somewhere taking money and sharing down the line and up the command system. So I can understand the frustration. He seems to be alone out there when it comes to payroll fraud and some of the more institutionalized forms of corruption, like over and under invoicing and people drawing on allowances and per diems that they do not deserve. He seems to be alone out. He needs the support of the system to be able to fight this.
Is he getting that support from where you sit? Is he getting that support?
You see, as I'm here, I find it extremely difficult to agree that I will have to work and depend on the resources I have, or go the extra mile to bring in more resources so that I can make myself a little more comfortable and also benefit my institution, while others sit down and then mismanage the same thing. In fact, there are sometimes I'm speaking with my deputy and I'm telling him I feel uncomfortable sometimes going after resources when others just sit down and they use their pen and then the chair they occupy to divert some of these resources into their pockets. And it is discouraging. You have to sometimes leave your families for long periods of time to go work for additional resources. And so he's not alone there. Some of us think that we need to streamline these things. It is the lack of transparency in our systems that allow these things to fester. And until we are able to create systems of reporting corrupt acts that do not lead to some form of victimization, we are going to continuously have these things. You can't just walk a government institution and report corrupt act, and the next day you are not transferred.
Yeah.
If you are an individual, a public individual, a new guy there, and you get to stop your boss from drawing some allowance, he's going to get you.
You're going to get victimized.
To go and in the university or some places they'll tell you to go and sit at the archives and also maybe sit at the library where you are not going to get any of the so-called side issues. So, it's not everybody, but I think that our society also glorifies some of these things. And I've been saying the clergy, the religious institutions that always tend to glorify every big man with money without asking themselves whether, given the position he or she occupies, he could come out with said money. And they get their front row seats. So the church and maybe the mosque have become image laundering places where people make money and go and launder their image and that money in the churches. So once you don't feel guilty for what you are doing, why should you stop? And so I can understand when it comes to this one, the special prosecutor is out there against a whole establishment. And I share his frustration.
When you say against the whole establishment, so what are you talking about? Are you talking of the different arms of government and everything? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, I think it's the different arms of government. You see, Ben, we can look at it administratively and ask ourselves, what can we do to ensure that somebody can just walk into an establishment, relay a report, expose some act without being found out?
Right.
You may say, okay, you want to report to your immediate boss, who is part of the deal. He's in on everything. So until we create those structures, we can't. We also have to ensure that we have some form of accountability. I think that there is so much discretionary authority when it comes to handling funds, especially in state institutions. And when you are reading the Auditor General's report or you are listening to the appearances by heads of institutions on their audit reports, you just get shocked that we have that amount of discretion in our institutions, allowing people to more or less divert and change funds into activities that allow them to siphon. That is always the beginning. The beginning is the discretionary power that some heads of institutions have to move funds to transparent activities, one that you can easily check on the spending, to other things that you cannot monitor. And at the end of the day, you get there, they say fuel, you get to any station and you buy fuel, they ask you how much should I write on the receipt, and you say, give me an empty one, and you get one. So this is where we live in, and as I always say, we can't eat our cake and have it. If we want everybody to be rich, you should expect some corruption to fester.
All right. Let me get into these stories and then we can say goodbye to the Daily Graphic newspaper. Majority stages walkout in Parliament over budget debate. And the majority in Parliament yesterday staged a walkout ahead of the approval of the budget statement and the economic policy of government for the year ending December 31, 2024. The walkout came after the majority and minority leaders had taken turns to wrap up the week-long debate, and the Minister of Finance, Kenneth Oyata, had also made a presentation in the House. The Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, then put a voice vote on the motion and declared that the ayes by the majority had it. But the Speaker's ruling was blatantly challenged by the minority on the grounds that there was no distinctive difference between the ayes and the nays by the minority. Now, basing his challenge on Order 1132, the Deputy Minority Leader, Emmanuel Ama Kofi-Buah, called for a head count or division. The Speaker heeded the request by the Deputy Minority Leader and instructed the clerks at the table to conduct the head count. Mr. Bagbin told the members of the House that the names of each MP would be called out for him or her to stand up. But the majority strongly objected to the Speaker's decision on grounds that he had earlier declared the ayes in favor of the motion and should stand by his decision and disallow the head count to avoid any possible defeat or having the motion lost, given that there were about 3 majority members of Parliament who were believed to be absent. The majority told the Speaker they would not have anything to do with the voting process and consequently walked out of the chamber amid booing from the minority MPs. Before that, the majority and minority leaders, Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu and Dr. Cassiel Atuban-Forson, had wrapped up the 9-day debate on the 2024 budget statement and economic policy of the government. So that's how it ended. You are in the thick of economics and finance. Of course, when there is a challenge in Parliament, that's the natural process that follows. Then there is a head count, but the majority walked out. Let me just add this story and then let you have your reactions. State agencies save $30 million from Ghana card merger. Nearly $30 million is being saved each year by the various state institutions that have successfully integrated their systems with the National Identification Authority database. Now, the savings are being made from the absence of the procurement for new equipment, non-printing of new sector-specific cards, and non-duplication of services, as the Ghana card now serves as the sole identity for health insurance, social security, taxation, and business transactions. That, of course, is according to Professor Ken Atafua, Executive Secretary of the NIA. Quick reactions to these stories.
Yes, first on the walkout by the majority, I felt that the Speaker did what he ought to do as far as the standing orders of Parliament are concerned. And I was particularly surprised that they staged a walkout. But staging a walkout is part of the tools on your toolkit. If you know things are not going to go your way and you have a chance of preparing for another day, you need to do what you can. So I expect that the majority would walk out, given that they didn't have the numbers on the day to get the motion passed. And if they had stayed in, it means that the majority would have succeeded in completely shooting down the budget. Yes, there are a lot of challenges. I've already indicated that the budget was uninspiring, and if you were a businessman waiting for it to see some significant impact on your cost of doing business, you were not going to find it. It didn't do a lot for Ghanaians in terms of putting money in their pockets so that we could increase domestic spending and in effect create demand that will boost businesses. So if you look at these things, I felt that the budget doesn't deserve to be passed. But as they always say, the minority will have their say, the majority have their way. It was just yesterday, the majority was not actually the majority in Parliament. They staged the walk now and tried to blame it on the Speaker, which I think was below the belt. But these are things we expect. When they have all their numbers, I'm sure they will in the come and force this budget on Ghanaians. So it is just a temporary hold up. But at the end of the day, this budget is going to pass because of the numbers we have in Parliament.
But right now there's a little standoff because the majority says the budget has been passed, the minority says no, it's not been passed. Now, like I said, if you look at the processes of Parliament, these are allowed, and if a head count, if a voice vote is contested, a head count follows. But the majority walked out. It was clear they did not have the numbers, and they walked out on that. Where does that leave the budget? Has it been passed or not from where you sit?
The Speaker is the one that determines whether something is passed or not. And you can have a whole lot of interjections and processes in Parliament. There can be even a voting and somebody contends that the voting process was flawed, the counting was bad. And after the Speaker has even ruled, can say, okay, let's review the facts on the ground, and if it's found that the ruling was based on some wrong premise, it can be reversed. So I want to agree with the Speaker of Parliament and the clerks of Parliament that have the final say as to what has been passed and what has not been passed. And I don't think that the majority has the right to say that the Speaker shouldn't have reviewed it, should have allowed it to hold, because they felt that the majority didn't have the numbers on their side, and the usual ayes and nays did not actually reflect the balance of power on the day. So right. I want to agree with the majority. The truth is that the budget has not been passed. It was actually found that the majority didn't have the numbers to carry the day, and therefore required another approach to passing the budget, which the majority worked out and didn't allow it to materialize. So I would say that we don't have a budget.
Okay, we don't have a budget. That's according to Dr. Michael Ayamga. We don't have a budget. Let me just wrap with these headlines and then read this quote. I like going to them. In the political section of the Daily Graphic newspaper, page 17, NDC disqualifies Niyaboy from contesting Odododiodo primary, and then NPP orphan constituency primaries. Contest promises to be keen in Upper West, Central, and Northern regions. But this quote, it reminds me of both the NDC and the MPP. Winston Churchill, British politician, he says, "The pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. The optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." The pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. The optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. This reflects the NDC in terms of free SHS, and I feel it also reflects the MPP in terms of a 24-hour economy. Makan. I see that sometimes. We push against things, we rile against them for different reasons, but I see both parties in there. Now, the Ghanaian Times newspaper, drama in Parliament, majority walks out ahead of budget approval, accuses Speaker of playing to minority gallery. Veep plants tree to mark Accra 2023 100-day countdown. Whenever I hear of these tree planting exercises, I think recently, I don't know whether it's ahead of COP28, but our Lands and Natural Resources Minister talking big about forestry and all of that. But we all know the state of what our country is. Some of the forest cover we've lost in the last few years, we've never seen such a rampant loss of forest cover over the last, let's say, 10 years. And especially within this period, with Galamsey actually out there running amok, There's also La General Hospital will be completed on schedule, Finance Minister assures, and some court decisions against OSP, regressive and dismissive. That's according to Kisi Jabeng. I'll do the story on page 6 in respect of the General Hospital. I've never been able to wrap my mind around what we've done to the people of La and its environs with pulling down the structure without having an adequate replacement. I can't recall, I can't even count the number of times in my previous media experience and here where people have lamented this exact situation. Yet every time it is a lot of big talk. We'll do this, we'll do this. When will the people of La get their hospital back? When? So the story says, the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, has assured of the completion of the La General Hospital on schedule in order to provide the needed healthcare services to the La community and its environs. He said the project had been prioritized as part of government's broader plan to improve healthcare delivery in the country and the dedication to meeting the specified construction schedule. What happened to the first construction schedule, though, and the ones that have followed? And is it now, entering an electoral year, that it will be completed? Well, we pray that happens for the sake of the people of La and its environs. Any reaction to that?
Yes, Ben, you can see in this country, if you want your street light, the bulbs of your street lights replaced, you are going to wait for a long time. But if you have to have them replaced completely, the whole street light removed and another one installed, you are much likely to meet success faster. Why? One comes with a huge contract and a procurement process and its inherent benefits kick in. If it is just a small renovation, we don't do. So I am not surprised that the La Hospital was pulled down because of some minor technicality. I think that is the usual demon of one entity wanting to have a whole procurement process with a big chunk of resources involved and getting the rewards thereof. I think that the people suffering at the behest of a government agent seeking to benefit from his position rather than economic and health reasons. So I'm surprised that the minister, we didn't have the adequate resources in a time that we are at the IMF cap in hand begging for 3 billion. This hospital maybe could have gone on another year or two until the economy stabilized and other things, and then you bring it down. You go pull down this massive health facility that is very crucial to the health of the people of La. Then you don't have a replacement. Whilst you are building it, they have to be making do. They have to bear the consequences of not having a hospital within distance to attend to their needs. So I think that is one of the shameful acts of procurement process racketeering that has led to this rather than any other consideration. Yes, it's election year, resources are there. So things like this are bound to happen, and I expect many of them to happen. But hey, better late than never. If the minister says they are going to build it in the interest of the people of La, we are going to say that thank you. But this government, you cannot trust them. There are 110 district regional hospitals that were supposed to be built. I don't know how many of them have been built. So in terms of promises, it is one of the easiest things that this government has been doing and doesn't fulfill them. So I'm cautiously optimistic and taking this with a pinch of salt that at the end of the day, it's going to be a long and protracted process, and the people of La will be suffering. Insensitive, if you ask me.
All right, so let's get into it. And the Daily Guide newspaper, Baumia launches 2023 African Games countdown. OSP cries over judicial losses. There's NDC supporters vandalize party HQ. Majority walks out on speaker over 2024 budget. And then Rebecca graduates 70 women in skills training. I'll be definitely doing that story. There's also this interesting cartoon in the Daily Guide newspaper. Running mate Sele, and pictured there Matthew Opoku Prempeh, Kennedy Japan. And interestingly, there's also a Catholic priest there, former parish priest of the Christ the King parish. I found that very interesting. Father Campbell in there. I don't know how his face ended up in here, but anyway, that's it. And there is the writing, Pimpana, C, Nanako. Well, we'll find out how the cookie crumbles. But we've been told by, I think it's the National Women's Organizer, Kate Jemfua, that it's going to be someone from the Ashanti region. The person is male, and the person is a member of parliament. So we'll see how that pans out. But let me get to this interesting story, though. Kenya's parliament has banned the wearing of a suit named after the late Zambian president, Kenneth Kaunda, within the building. Speaker of Parliament Moses Wetangula said Kaunda suits, as well as traditional African clothes, were not welcome. I found this interesting. Kaunda suits, as well as traditional African clothes, are not welcome in Kenya's parliament. And that's the preference of Kenyan President William Ruto. And now he is going to have to find other options. But Rebecca graduates 70 women in skills training. 70 women in the Greater Accra region have graduated in baking and soap making, courtesy of the Rebecca and KGL foundations. The women were trained as part of the Terema initiative by the Rebecca Foundation, which seeks to empower women economically by giving them employable skills through training. Of course, I'm talking about the First Lady, Rebecca Ekufuado. Well, those are the stories. And I just might add this final one because there's only one substantive story, the Rebecca story I've done. And the Business Finder, IPPs on life support over $2.3 billion debt, threatening potential power supply crisis. That's the last story I'll do, and it's a wrap. So, in a stark warning, the Chamber of Independent Power Generators in Ghana has raised concerns about the sustainability of electricity production, indicating a potential crisis if the government's outstanding debts are not settled promptly. The chamber revealed that its members were owed a staggering $2.3 billion, emphasizing that discussions with the government regarding a payment plan had failed to yield positive results over the last 3 months. That's how we wrap. Your take, and then we're gone.
Yes, Ben, I think I would start with the First Lady's initiative. And I think that despite everything, she is one of the exemplary
She's been doing very well. And that's why when I see stories in respect of her foundation, I bring them up.
She came to her husband behind the stage and not overly out there insulting the husband's political opponent. So she appears as the peacemaker that you expect the First Lady to be, enjoying respect across the respect. And she's making an impact where it matters most as far as skills training is concerned. I want to say that thank you, First Lady. We are grateful for being an example. I want to delve a little bit on the running mate saga of the New Patriotic Party. I have found the posturing sometimes disturbing. Being a non now, I know how we are treated. I don't have any qualms about it. We have worked hard to ensure that some people respect us. But if you see some of the grotesque images, especially by one of the aspirants from the Ashanti region, I think that is way overboard. The glorification of another human being, kneeling down on your knees and begging and doing those gestures. We all know how the vice president has been treated these last 4 years. I know somebody very deep in the MPP who told me the guy was used. So you are the same guys that drove him from economics and he's now trying to find a space for himself in digitization where he's an amateur. And then because you want him to select you, you are all over the place and see this is how you've been treating the vice president. I think it's an attempt to fool Ghanaians. If you, in the event that your party gets elected, you're going to slap the vice president in public and salute him in public and slap him in private. So I don't want to be fooled. I don't think that those gestures are genuine. It's just to shortchange the process.
I want your quick thoughts.
I also not comfortable with that.
I want your quick thoughts because of time. Time is not our friend. On the IPPs and the $2.3 billion debt, do you have a very quick reaction? Hello, Dr. Ayamga.
Yes, Ben, that's the line that we are walking in. We are tiptoeing in a field of disaster if we do not find a way of addressing the issues of the independent power producers in a sustainable manner. We have begun receiving inflows from the IMF, and it looks like we are not prioritizing the independent power producers who are the lifeline of our economy. If we do not do something more concrete and we do not come up with an elaborate program to ensure that their debt situation is improved, we are going to plunge this country into darkness, and it will be worse than the last time, given the already fragile nature of the economy.
Dr. Ayamga.
I agree with the call, and I think that, listen, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Ayamga, for joining the conversation. I'm sorry I had to rush you a bit at the tail end. It's just that we've run out of time. But we're always grateful that you joined the conversation. Now, this segment is always brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They are offering free prostate screening if you're a man, free fertility screening if you're a woman. Locate them at their branches here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronomu Abuehia behind the Angel Educational Complex, the Stakrade Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and the Siamanzima. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, bringing us to the end of the news review. Sports is up next with Mubarak Haruna.